Welcome back to another Riftbound recap, and have you been waiting for Mind Legends to, well, get some really good support? Well, good news is today we finally got it, and this is probably the most excited I have been for spoilers yet, and it's not just because of Teemo, I promise, but we got some really interesting cards that hint at future set design that has me really excited, and hopefully gonna have some big payoffs here to come in the next few days. But without further ado, let's dive in. Now, first up, we got to talk about Viktor, and, well, spoiler, it goes in the Viktor deck. That's not the only place, but I think we can all agree that the recruit tokens and just more the synergy that it's naturally going to have finds its home very well in the Viktor deck. But at 4 energy, 1 power, and 3 might, Viktor definitely is going to be wanting some extra support with him, but whenever you play a card on your opponent's turn, play a recruit into your base. We've already seen some great blue staples that we're going to be wanting to play anyways. Of course, more to come, and one hopefully going to be revealed and be a key staple later on in this very own video. But for this one, I'm very excited because it also lines up for other just Mind Legends that want to have extra card generation, right? We do want to be playing a lot of cards on our opponent's turn. This is also going to count for the Ari decks who are going to be playing calm spells on our opponent's turn and just giving us this incremental advantage. Now, for some of the other cards we're going to talk about a little bit later, where Mind does have some of this like self-sacrifice package, you just want a token generator built into your deck, and Viktor does all of that. So I think for what we might see in the future, just in terms of a super heavy control style of deck, then the blue-yellow Viktor or the Mind and Order Viktor, I think, will just be the go-to for a lot of people. This is one that I'm definitely excited to see how it fits into the other Mind Legends, because again, we are going to be getting value out of this every single turn, it feels like, just by how Mind decks want to operate, but also the other color combinations that you can really lean into, I think makes Viktor a very interesting card to use in the future. Now, I do want to caveat that I think this is something that you're either going to be playing because of very direct token synergy that we're going to talk about here very shortly, or you are just playing a all-in token spam deck that works only in the Viktor combinations, because then you do get the order side of the cards as well. And of course, there's things like Hidden Blade or Call that we want to be playing, which will also create more tokens for us to making sure that we're staying ahead and maybe getting that big Grand Plaza finish at the end. So again, Viktor, a card I'm very excited for to see where it lands. I think this has insane potential depending on what the rest of the Mind domain looks like for the self-sacrifice package. And well, I probably can't say that enough times at this point, so let's just go on and talk about it. Malahar, baby, let's go. One of my, for the very limited time that I, cared and got to play League or Wild Rift, Malahar, I just love this style. I love the gameplay that he has, so I'm very excited to see that we got a sacrifice effect with it. So at 4 energy and 3 might, following the same play as Viktor here, it has an ability which is a action ability, which means we can use this on our opponent's turn, kill a friendly unit or gear, that might be more important later on, and add 2 power. So this is going to be really important for all those spells that we're going to be trying to play on our opponent's turn, especially like Kaisa, who has that very high power cost in some of her spells, right? There's a lot of other things that we could see in the near future, but generally speaking, this is going to be great for playing those spells to get the most value out of our opponent's turn, comboing there with the Viktor. But what I really like about this one in particular is that, yes, again, it can go for any of the blue legends. Will get a good value out of this or can potentially build around this, but Wraith of Echoes is a card that was spoiled earlier that is now saying, look, if it's my turn, your turn, doesn't matter. I'm going to sacrifice a unit. I'm going to get to draw a card. And oh, by the way, I'm paying the power cost for this spell, whatever I want to play. And now I just get these extra effect for free and not fall behind on runes. And this is something that hasn't really come up a lot yet. And I have a couple of gameplay videos and one that I'm about to release later on this week as well, where you'll start to see more of the rune kind of catch-up mechanic or needing to get ahead or looking for certain breakpoints in runes be more important. But the control decks are ones that are really going to want to make sure that we're staying ahead on runes where possible and not getting too far behind, so that when we're starting to get all of our extra draw effects, or let's say we do something crazy with like Echo and we sacrifice the Malahar for it, we need resources to play with. So I think Malahar being a great option for us to making sure that we have another way to pay for power if we have a high power cost deck is going to feel very welcomed, especially if we're leaning on more of those token strategies and sacrificing those as needed for, again, Wraith of Echoes drawing us extra cards. Viktor is going to be pushing out extra tokens. I am just so excited to see where blue self-sacrifice goes, and this is just all within blue, right? We've already seen a few cards in the chaos domain or purple purple that have death knell effects. So now we're getting even more value if we are in a blue and purple combination that says Wraith of Echoes is letting us draw a card. The purple card as it dies is doing an additional effect. And then Malahar is granting us power, right? This is kind of like the holy trinity of power that your deck would get to line up, and that is maybe a little bit of Christmas Miracle Land, but by themselves, right? Malahar and Wraith of Echoes is going to be most likely a key strategy anyways in those types of decks that you're happy to see and happy to sacrifice some of those other cards because it allows you to just go through your deck faster. And of course, if we just need to throw a recruit into a base and it dies that way, we're happy to get the extra draw in with the Wraith of Echoes effect. So again, as a control player, heavily biased here, I gotta admit, but I am very excited to see what Malahar opens up. However, we do have to acknowledge that outside of Wraith of Echoes and the 1 Sentry, to be fair, it does feel like this is going to be heavily biased in being paired with Chaos, so you get more of those death knell effects, or we might just find ourselves in a position where, hey, we're happy to sacrifice stuff because we're generating extra cards through Viktor, and then Kai'Sa gets her big spell payoff, right? So I think Kai'Sa or the token self-sacrifice effects are really the two home for this card. Probably doesn't fit anywhere else, but I'm very excited for the opportunities that this will open up. Now, the one that, or two that I have to talk about together is Nocturn and Blue Teemo. So Nocturn has a very interesting ability. It's a 4 energy, 1 power, and 4 might. It has ganking, which is nice, but the interesting part about this is its special effect. When you look at cards from the top of your deck and don't draw them, and you see this card, you may play it for a single power. That's insane, just from in terms of if we're trying to surprise something onto the battlefield, we're having ways to look at the top card of our deck, spoiler Teemo, we are now able to do a 4 might swing for a single power. This is something that, again, because it's getting a very low cost to advantage, you know, a 4 might swing is well above curve for things like discipline or the other effects that opponents might have in terms of battle tricks or what have you. However, what this combos with together very well is going to be the new Blue Teemo at 2 energy, 1 power, and 2 might. Of course, this is going to go with the hidden keyword that we've talked about so far with Teemo, but when I defend or played from hidden, so defend does matter, but mostly we're concerned about the hidden aspect of this, reveal a top 5 cards of your main deck and deal 1 to an enemy unit here for each card with hidden and then recycle them. So in a world that we have Teemo as our hidden card, we are able to play the Teemo from hidden, reveal a number of hidden cards, ping one of your opponent's cards, maybe removing it, maybe just getting some additional damage, and then going, oh, by the way, here's a Nocturn, here's a 4-point swing in my favor, good luck. So this is very interesting because we also have to add the disclaimer of how many hidden cards are we going to be playing in the Teemo deck, right? There's a couple of them that I think are just staples based on what we've seen so far and kind of how they'll fit. And of course, you know, both versions of Teemo working out quite well here, but there is a certain threshold where you have to stop and say, well, hidden as part of the gimmick of, you know, the keyword itself, these cards are generally going to feel a little bit bad to play by themselves. And in addition, unless you have the special battlefield, you can only play 1 hidden at a battlefield you control at a time. So you also then can't just put all the hidden cards in your deck hoping to, you know, heavily rely on the Blue Teemo because you're going to find yourself with a handful of, well, awkward cards that you don't know what to do with. So finding a way to hold both battlefields and have 2 hidden cards down at a time is ultimately going to be the kind of the best scenario for you because we also have the gear that lets us get extra card draw for having hidden cards. But this does leave the question of what is actually the right number of hidden to include in our deck. So this is one that I'm very excited about. And again, I missed this at first when I was like, oh man, this card is terrible. Who cares? Because I thought it was only from hidden. But the fact that you also get it on defense definitely feels like it's going to help you hold those battlefields, which is really what we wanted, right? The purple Teemo so far is, hey, I'm going to do the very obvious battle trick, reveal it, and it goes back to my hand, and then play it again. But this allows you to get that one big swing with the Blue Teemo, and then just potentially do it again for defending. You don't have to use this as your hidden card for that turn anymore. You just leave it up as a threat that says, hey, I showed you the Nocturne combo once. You either have to find a way to remove this Teemo as is, and then still have to deal with the other hidden card I placed down, or you attack into my battlefield knowing full well that I might pull up another Nocturne and have another 4-point might swing that you may or may not have an answer for. And sometimes you have to gamble it. Sometimes they just reveal no hiddens, right? And you say, hey, I dodged Teemo, we're great. And then other times they're going to reveal, 5 or 4 hiddens plus Nocturne. And you're like, cool, I lost everything. And that's not going to feel so great. And again, the last caveat I have to add to all this, I could really just talk about the Teemo deck and the mind games and all that stuff forever. But the last part I want to mention, of course, is Teemo's signature spell that then also says, hey, I'm going to be looping these cards back and I'm going to make you think about this. And maybe it's another Teemo, right? That's giving us the effect. So lots of crazy things that you can ultimately line up and make this a very exciting series of cards and sequencings to lay out within the Teemo deck and plan ahead for. But this is definitely one that when we think about where it exists today, these two are definitely very excited to see one another. But then also with just the other vision cards, the last thing I want to mention actually with Viktor is that you have ways to see the top of your card consistently. So sometimes just thinning out your deck and playing the Nocturne for free is also going to be a very fine thing to do. So both these cards, I'm very excited to see where they land because I think there's insane potential for both. But again, I'm waiting to see what are the other hidden cards that we're going to get to round out the rest of the Teemo deck. Because right now it's very strong. We just have to wait and see what else we might get that's kind of lurking below. And then, of course, the one that we got to talk about, welcome back, Pot of Greed, right? So to take a step back for maybe those that this is your first video, don't know the rules so far of Riftbound, this card can ultimately be played 2 different ways. It can either be, basically Divination, to use a Magic the Gathering reference, where you're paying an amount to draw 2 cards, or you can play it as a hidden card for a single power, which means just recycle a rune to the bottom. Or if you have a seal, right, just pay your seal, put it at a battlefield, and on the next turn when your opponent goes into it, you can just react with it and say, oh, I'm going to draw 2. But the important part here is that we have already established we are playing a deck of mind games. And in all of the mind decks, we just wanted more card draw. We are typically going to be the control style of decks that are going to go through their hand and want to find additional pieces. So a card like Consult the Past, which allows us to draw 2, is quite literally everything that we wanted to see for the Teemo deck, and I think the other blue legends are going to be very excited to see it all the same. It gives us options for a hidden card. That means our opponent is going to have to respect it. In the case of Viktor, it could be a hidden blade, right? It could be something else that disrupts their strategy of attacking into us. It could just be a simple draw 2. Maybe it's a draw 2 for me. Maybe it's a draw 2 for you, right? Who knows? In the Ari deck, it could be one of the defensive options. And then we have to say, okay, this might be a +3 might for me, or it could be the draw 2. And now you, the opponent, have to figure out how to navigate that. Now, of course, you can always count my graveyard, see how many copies of each card I've played. There's certainly ways to navigate that and understand what are the probable chances of it being option A versus option B, but it is still very important that this is a card that if it forces your opponent to play, in a certain way, you can just say, okay, I didn't want this battlefield anyways. I'll just simply, use this, get my draw 2. You can have the point, and I just got to play this for a lot cheaper while still extending out the rest of my turn. Now, of course, the other part that we have to add to this is that Teemo just gets to play this for a single energy for the hidden cost. So Teemo himself doesn't feel like it is going to be a deck that requires seals because all the cards that we care about so far about power are just either paid through his ability or we're getting enough runes a turn where we don't care. We're happy to pay the extra power if we really have to for another card. So that's also freeing up deck space for us. And then again, with his legend ability of being able to pop back those other 2 Teemo cards that we had mentioned and then play another hidden card, this just gives you so many options of what you can force your opponent to play around that I am so excited to see where it lands. So is it Divination? Is it Pot of Greed? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. But either way, it is playable is what it is. I'm very excited to see how this lines up for all of the Mind Legends, at least in the Origin set. We might get some other draw effects or other cards that ultimately kind of, take the spotlight away in the near future. But for Teemo, I think this is, again, something that you're absolutely happy to play. Going to be a 3 of because we have to find the right hidden cards for the right situation. So extra draw is always welcome. And then just Teemo, just being the combination that he is of Mind and Chaos together and all the other blue and purple cards respectively that we've seen so far today really makes me curious to see what type of more hyper control style of decks it will get, because blue and purple is looking to be a very nasty combination so far. So with that is our very quick roundup for our Riftbound recap today. Let me know what your favorite card was in the comments below as well. Again, I'm working on a Darius and Lee Sin versus video, so make sure to like and subscribe if you want to see more gameplay content. I definitely tried to clean up my mat and clean up a little bit of the editing for those comments we had in the last video. But again, very excited to see what the future holds for Riftbound, so tons more content to look forward to in the future. So until next time, my friends, stay safe, stay hydrated, and we'll see you in the next video. Cheers.